Good afternoon. I'd like to call this special meeting of the Wilson County Board of Education to order. Before we do any approval or anything, I would like to amend the agenda. I'd like to add Springfield Middle School update under discussion action 3, so make that item B. I'd like to remove from the closed session student hearings. And before the discussion item, item 3, I'm going to make that a 2A. I'd like to add chairman's comments. And with those changes to the agenda, the chair will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Mrs. Powell,
I move that we accept the amended agenda for the Wilson County Board of Education meeting for August the 14th, 2024. Second.
it's been moved by Mrs. Powell, seconded by Mrs. Boyette and Mr. Mercer, that the agenda be amended and approved. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. 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 Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously and that we currently have 6 members of the board in attendance. Currently, Mr. Breen is not here. So with a 6-0 composition, the motion carries unanimously. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, for my comments, I begin today's comments in gratitude, thankfulness, and even despair. The despair comes from the event of the EF3 tornado that struck in the community in the late hours of Wednesday, August the 7th, and the early morning hours of Thursday, August the 8th. This despair is felt because of the loss of life of Mr. Brian Barnes, and condolences are extended to his family and friends. Second, despair is felt for families, including our own Mr. Hawley, and others in the community who lost homes, businesses, crops, and for some, a sense of hope. Third, despair because of the severe damage to our facility, Springfield Middle School. Then comes the gratitude and thankfulness for the generosity and outpouring of support shown from the Wilson County community, school systems, and school boards around the area, and others from near and far. To Dr. Mills, Dr. Williams, the Executive Director of Facility Services, Greg Woodard, and all of our maintenance staff, your being on the scene immediately, assisted by the sheriff's and police departments, emergency management, fire departments, EMS, and other first responders, and if I have omitted anybody, charge it to my head and not to my heart. For those who helped in getting the area secured, we say thank you. To Builder Services, we are grateful for your availability and quick containment to keep a bad situation from becoming worse. Now, our job of ensuring the successful start of a new school year for all students is underway. We ask for the patience from the community as a whole as plans are developed and put into place to best facilitate the Springfield school family in making the adjustment that we will have to make as the school year gets underway. And for that, I am thankful And thank you, members of the board, for the support that you have shown to the administration and staff in getting us through to this point. And we look forward to hearing from Dr. Mills, his update and other information. Please know that this meeting is being live streamed through the Wilson County Schools YouTube channel. And the public can go to YouTube to find the video or go to the Wilson County Schools Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages, and the Wilson County Schools website for the YouTube link. And now we'll move on to item 3, the contract requiring board approval. Dr. Mills, and for whatever intro comments that you choose to make at this point.
Madam Chair, you have a copy of the contract for builder services. Obviously, this was an extreme situation. I'm very grateful for their support in the restoration and their work, having been there from about 30 minutes after the tornado struck to today. The progress has been amazing, and we'll be able to share more about that in a little bit, plus on Monday. But this is for your information and approval. I will tell you that we were also very fortunate. Ms. Cornetta was available in the early hours of the morning to review this with me. And so I'd ask that she have anything to point out as we go forward with approving this contract.
Now, members of the board, as a policy issue, the superintendent typically has a $90,000 threshold for which he has to not seek board approval. Anything over that does generally require board approval, but in these emergency circumstances, according to legal counsel, the superintendent does have the availability to enter into a contract, and that it is our responsibility to now ratify that contract as it has been presented to you. Am I correct, Ms. Cornetta?
That's correct. I just wanted to point out that I personally, on your behalf, am grateful for Dr. Mills and his staff and Builder Services. They were extremely quick and great, and I'm very sorry for what you all are enduring. But as to the contract, the initial 72 hours was a point where Builder Services came back with a scope of work, which is contained into this contract. There's a not-to-exceed amount of about $2.38 million, and in conversations with Mr. Bass, he errs on the side of overestimating, and that if there's a lesser amount that is ultimately charged, it will be charged and no more for what actually happens.
Okay. And let me thank you. I did not have you in the long list, but thank you, because that meant that you, in the middle of the night, were attending to the needs of our system, and we thank you for that as well.
Absolutely.
Members of the board, I'll give you just a few minutes to raise any questions, to have a look at the contract that is provided, and as Mrs. Cornetta stated, the amount is to not exceed $2.381.517 $28.
Madam Chair, could I also point to the emergency justification memo that was drafted contemporaneously with the tornado strike, and that also enabled Dr. Mills to act swiftly on your behalf.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
at the risk of stating something that is super obvious, that reaction and quick probably reduced this amount by a tremendous amount. That building sitting there in the condition it was in for any amount of time, the cost of the losses and repair of building would have been, I can't even guess how much more, but it would have been a tremendous amount, I'm certain.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Mercer?
may I make a motion?
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, I move the board approve the contract with Building Services Incorporated of North Carolina to provide disaster restoration services for Springfield Middle School in an amount not to exceed $2,381,517.28.
Second.
It has been moved by Mr. Mercer, seconded by
Duly
Mrs.
seconded.
Boyette, Mrs. Barnes, Mrs. Powell. You in the second?
Well, I've got a couple questions I'm gonna ask
Oh,
in
well,
the discussion, I guess.
We'll still have the discussion, but if you want to join in the second, then we'll entertain that. But if not, the three said persons have seconded the motion to approve the contract for Builder Services Incorporated of North Carolina to provide the disaster restoration services to Springfield Middle School not to exceed $2,381,517.28. Is there any discussion? Mr. Boykin?
First of all, will this be coming out of our general fund, or will insurance be paying this direct?
I'm glad to address that, Mr. Boykin. 2 days ago, the Department of Insurance, who insures school property, was on site and declared that this is a covered loss, which are magic words in the insurance industry. So this amount will be paid by the insurance company. They have also pledged an amount toward the rebuilding and the repair, which is not yet started and which will need to. All of that project will be handled by the state and the Department of Insurance, subject to your input, but they will be paying. They've authorized already $13 million for capital project. What's unclear is whether or not the $2.8 million that you all are authorizing right now is part of that 13 million, or if it's in addition to. But we'll get more written confirmation in the coming days from the Department of Insurance, who's been an incredible collaborator here.
So the 2.3, 2.4, yeah. It falls in line with what the insurance company is expecting to see.
When I say covered loss, because Brian Hood, who was the representative on site, was here, he also brought with him another representative from the Lloyd's Insurance Company. The state is obligated to pay the first $10 million, and then after that, the secondary insurer comes and pays the remaining. So all of them are at this point in agreement that it will be covered.
That's all I needed to know.
I believe you all have a deductible of $5,000.
$5,000.
Mrs. Barnes?
Having dealt with some of the restoration after storms, is there any clause or something if we should have mold futuristically, where the company that we're dealing with would be able to come back and do some more restorative work?
Yes, absolutely. That's part of the cleanup for right now, and then also the sustained improvements and repairs. So yes, that is a great point. And with this tornado came a lot of humidity and damage, so that will be repaired and then monitored.
Because this was a disaster and the governor had declared a state of emergency, where does FEMA enter into this, or does FEMA enter into this? And do we have any word? If they do, have we received any word from them at this point?
At this point, the emergency declaration by the governor gets you assistance from the state, but to get public assistance from FEMA, they need to be on site to declare it a disaster officially. We've put calls into them daily to determine whether they've made a determination, and they haven't yet, but we will let Dr. Mills know as soon as that happens. That would trigger public assistance above and beyond what the state is providing from the federal government. But you wouldn't ever get like duplicate, windfall, because they just would make sure that you were made whole again by repairing the school.
Okay.
I have a follow-up question.
Mrs. Barnes?
On the news last night, they were saying that FEMA was out of funds, and I don't know whether it's factual or what, so,
Thank you for that. I did not know that, but we will still keep calling.
yeah. They said last night,
Are there other questions?
Um,
Mr. Mercer?
I was interested in the quick response And, maybe, someone, Greg or someone might know, did we respond quickly enough to avoid a substantial risk of mold and mildew? When I say we respond, you mean the companies and the people?
I think Mr. Bass can answer that question better than me,
Well,
Mr. Mercer.
If you come to the mic and, Ms. May, could you make sure that mic is on, please?
Is it green it's on? I'm on. Madam Chair, Board, Dr. Mills, thank y'all for allowing me to speak, and I'll update you. I'm Ben Bass with Builder Services. So we arrived on site 7:40 some Thursday morning. Our semis were in the parking lot, started rolling in a little before 10 o'clock. We were setting up equipment right after that, and we've been nonstop since. To answer Mr. Mercer's question, in 75% of the school, the answer is yes. Sixth grade and seventh grade hall is a totally different conversation than the rest of the building. The rest of the building, we were able to mitigate. We were able to maintain and improve the conditions within the first 48 hours to prevent any secondary damages. The main damages that area, and I'm sorry if you want me to tell it, I can tell everything, where we're currently at right now. So that part of the building, it was just moisture, wet ceiling tiles where the ridge cap had blown off and blown wind in and had some ceiling issues from where it picked up the ceiling and put it down and dropped some lights out of the ceiling. Other than that, when you walk into school tomorrow evening or Saturday morning, honestly, you won't know anything that has happened. The only thing you'll notice is the auditorium, and I know that I'm real heartbroken for Dr. Mills. It doesn't have any carpet in it. So the auditorium
That
lost all
carpet
the,
need to be replaced. Yeah,
so it lost all the carpet. But other than that, that area will be, you won't be able to tell anything's happened. The sixth grade and seventh grade hall is destroyed. So when you walk in, it's be very little drywall left. The roof is being temporarily repaired right now to keep the moisture out. But it is very heavily damaged, and it'll be walled off where you won't be able to access it. So it'll be a firewall constructed on both halls, so you won't be able to access that way, and so it'll be painted and everything. So when the students see it, it'll look normal. It's just you can't access them wings. And so, but the bright side, if there is a bright side, you're gonna be able to use 75% of the school. So,
Can I ask you a question?
absolutely.
I noticed that it said under plumbing that a portion is not included in the current scope of work.
That's-
Does that mean while you're restoring it?
Yes, ma'am. So right now, there's, and when that was written, there was no known plumbing issues, none of that, because Daryl and Greg had already had the plumber scheduled to put 2 joints in to cut the water off of them wings. So other than that, and I can go ahead and update where that doesn't include the HVAC, because that was an unknown. The chiller system and everything has been put back in use this morning, and it's running. I just left there. So the chiller system is working. The air handlers are working. So that's good.
That's great.
I just want to compliment you before you go to your seat.
No problem.
Good job, well done.
Thank you.
at this point.
Thank you.
So, are we working on permanent power now?
Oh, yes, sir. The power's back on. The chief building inspector was there for a couple of hours yesterday, walked every bit of the electrical with the, our head electrician. Inspected everything. Wilson Power come back on, energize the transformer. And then the electrician slowly brought up each phase. That was completed late last night. And then the mechanical company and the sensor, Viracon I think's the name of them. They were there this morning to set the set points. They brought up the chiller with the electricians, so they're running. So yeah, you're back on permanent power. That piece of it is the great part. The biggest unknown or the biggest worry to me was the chillers. Because you can't be in the building without any air conditioning. I mean, so that way it allows us, so now our big equipment that you see outside with the tubes running in and stuff, it takes about 24 hours for the building system to catch up. So once it catches up, we will remove all of that, and right now that's scheduled to be removed tomorrow morning. So,
And also, I'd like to say thank you again.
Yes, ma'am.
You move so fast, it's amazing to me.
I appreciate it.
And we want as much normalcy as possible for our students, because they really, this has been a loss for all of us.
Yeah.
And the parents, and I've had people question about where we're going, are we gonna have, the building's gonna still be there, and I said, yes, we're working on it. So the reassurance of you standing there and giving us that report is what we needed.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Like I said, when they, when y'all get the building back, we may be still in the 6th grade or 7th grade wing with some equipment, but other than that, the rest of the school will be, I mean, I hate to say it, but it'd be walk in and look like it was when you left.
We're blessed, thank you.
Are there other comments or questions for Mr. Bass? We thank you and your staff. We'd like to recognize Ms. Thomas, Kelly Thomas, who is the principal at Springfield Middle, who is in the audience and has been in consultation with Mr. Bass, Mr. Woodard, and Dr. Mills, and everybody else as we're developing plans for the reopening of the school and the use of it. So, any other questions? There is a motion on the floor. Oh, and Mr. Bass, who is with you? Is anybody else with you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
They're all looking.
Good place to be, good place to be. Okay, so there is a Ms. Boyette?
I just wanted to add, and if we needed a rainbow, is the fact that that carpet is gone.
You know I shared that right away. That's why he's teasing me about. Ms. Thomas made that clear too.
All right, well, if there are no other discussion points, there is a motion on the floor to approve the contract with Builder Services Incorporated to provide disaster restoration services to Springfield Middle School in the contract amount not to exceed $2,381,517.28. Are you ready for the vote? Those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. Your updates?
Yes, ma'am. Board members, audience members, I have a brief overview of some information. I made copies for everyone in the audience as well. Mr. Bass, who's phenomenal, he's like the National Guard and a hard hat, shared information that's on the sheet, but I wanted to go through some information with you briefly and kind of tell you where we were. Monday, we can show some pictures of the before, the during, and the after to give folks an idea of the scope of what's happened just in the last week. And it's hard to believe it's been that period of time and what's been able to be achieved. Before I start with that, I'd like to make just a couple global statements because I think this is very important. I would like to thank everyone who's been involved up to this point. It is overwhelming the amount of support and kindness that folks have shown to the Springfield School in our district. At one point Thursday, my phone was blowing up so much with offers of help and support, I simply just started crying. It's very humbling. So from the coast to next door to Raleigh and beyond, from school systems, board members, friends and family, associates, old acquaintances, anyone and everyone has reached out to offer support. And I think that speaks a lot about what educators do and the relationships that we have with other folks. But it's been very humbling. We tried to reach back out to folks, and it takes a while to do that, especially when you're in the middle of things, but it was quite impressive. So I just want you to know we'll be trying to follow up with some people formally, but there is a ton of support for everyone in that area and for our district. I also wanted to personally thank the staff and the parents and the students at Springfield, because I know this has been a very tense and stressful situation because there's a lot of unknowns. And I think what we tried to do is act as quickly as possible. As you can see, we've done that to bring some normalcy back. And the thing that we've asked all along is just, please just let us get in here and get going, and let us tell you when we know something that's accurate. And Ms. Thomas was meeting with her staff the day after, or the morning of, online with some of our staff, parents and students in the community, and have been phenomenal to be supportive and patient, and that has helped a lot. It's been tremendous. And I just wanted to personally thank them on behalf of the administration and the school board, because we want to give answers. And we're finally at a point where we can give some closer answers. But there was a lot of things that had happened over the last week, and they were all chained to each other. If one thing didn't fall right, then we don't know. And so we've been planning and running since I was standing in the sixth grade hall at 3:30 in the morning going, oh my God, this is going to destroy these folks when they see their rooms. I mean, it really upset me. So I want to personally again thank all the staff and the parents and the students for their patience and kindness as we figure this out. And it's going to need to continue, because we're going to be flexible and we're going to have to work through some things, but we're going to have school. I said that the first day, and we've been working towards that since. So I would also like to thank I believe it's the Crossroads Fire Department that was out there when I rolled up like an idiot and pulled right up underneath the flagpole and almost hit it, because couldn't see it. I couldn't see it. And several parents were on that call as members of the fire department. And they took time with Greg and Daryl, who turned the water off that was shooting out of the front of the building. It's the biggest wrench I've ever seen in my life. And you start realizing the scale of things, and some things we could not even see. It was so dark, because there's the clatter of the alarm systems going off from the battery backups, and there's water, there's debris everywhere. But they took time to take us around so we could go in the building. And, you know, we were in there for just a few minutes to see some classrooms. Those are the pictures I sent you that you see on this contract, until they told us to leave because another one was coming. So when you see that to where we are today and what Mr. Bass and Builder Services have done to mitigate, as Mr. Mercer was asking about, future damage, and we would have lost the building from the moisture and the rain and the conditions. I've never seen a turnout like that from the time we made the call to when they arrived, and how fast and things we wouldn't even have thought of. So we'll share more about that Monday, hopefully. But in this handout, we get a daily update from Builder Services, and I just wanted to show you the one from yesterday. And Mr. Bass mentioned some of this, but there's a temporary roof going up. The roof is gone. on most of the sixth grade wing and some of the seventh grade wing. So they're having to pull what's left and replace, and I've got pictures of some of the trusses, and there's a tree stuck up in one of them. They're bent, they're twisted. You can see the force. They've dried those out. The furniture that was in those rooms has already been cleaned and was labeled. I'm talking cleaned and labeled and ready for us to move in the building to be used well before yesterday, which has allowed us to plan for instruction and what we can do. I'm extremely appreciative of the documentation they will be providing us. Everything they do and touch is documented with as-built, not only in a report, but in a USB drive. Because if you think about it, they've had to touch every receptacle, every light fixture, things that we wouldn't even have thought about. But we were very blessed that it did not affect the cafeteria and some other global areas. But they had to check everything. But everything we've done has been linked to the future system. This system connects to this one connects to this one. If you think about it, we lost 2 whole wings of a school that are open. So, but they were in immediately with dehumidifiers and scrubbers and had temporary ductwork up and power. It's what they did saved that building. And Mr. Bass and his staff are phenomenal. So just wanted to thank them personally as well. So currently, here's where we are. And this may have changed since this morning, but power is being restored in phases to the building. That's to check systems and loads. The engineer will be completing the inspection of the building today, the structure. That's to tell us things we may have to do later on in some other aspects. But the building inspector was in the school yesterday. He allowed power to be restored. And Mr. Bass and our staff have been working with the building inspector, so we have a certificate of occupancy so we can take over the building. The simplex, the fire alarm sensors, if you think about it, it ripped that all out, so we have to bypass those on the wings to turn the fire suppression system on for the rest of the building so we can occupy the building. So that's being handled. You mentioned the ball valves being put in place. I think Daryl was in the ceiling the other day walking to see about putting those in. So those are being placed so we can isolate the water to those wings when they come back. All mechanical, it's wonderful to know. I didn't even know that until today. The chillers coming back online, that was a huge concern. I remember when we were trying to find a 50-ton chiller to put on a school. We had to drive across the state maybe to find one. They rolled up and pulled 3 off the truck and put them on the end of the school. I was like, I want to go to the beach with you. Oh, I bet you got everything in that truck. And I was like, that's the best. That's the best. I took pictures. I was showing people, like, you don't get it. You don't get it. So, I mean, everything you could think of is coming back and is working well for us. We've been very lucky. But we've had to wait until we see these things. And they have done things the right way to get us to this point. And we have done things the right way to get to this point because we just don't know till they come back up. So far we've been lucky and it's working out. Envirocon, the controllers, again, 2 wings are going to have to run continuously to keep that dry in there, but they've got to be segmented out. So those are some of the things that are happening from a building standpoint. But on the back side, I want to go over a few things with you just from basic information. We met Monday with all of our team, and Ms. Thomas has been an integral part of that. I was talking with her on the way to the building. I won't tell you what I was saying, but it wasn't good words because she was under a warning, couldn't leave her house. And I didn't want her to come out and see the building because it was bad. She didn't need to see that. But she's been involved with our planning all along. And so they have a plan for teachers and orientation is being handled. And she can share more about that. But that she needs to go follow up with her teachers and let them know. Technology's been working. They'll be coming in once we can go in and make sure that the server part of the wing, one wing, the intermediate distribution frame that serves one aspect was completely soaked. Mr. Bass did give me some props. He said, y'all tell me what this thing is here. It was standing put on. I said, I'm a recovering tech nerd. I know what that is. And I can tell you that means this part of the wings is not going to work. But it also serves the office, so we'll have to put some temporary for that. We've got a plan for that. We've looked at equipment and some other things. All the technology was in the media center and the carts, and it was safe. They had dehumidifiers in there that morning, but the strike did not hit that, and that was a blessing. So all those pieces and parts were in play. Ms. Lynch and the district are working on donations and supplies being handled. We've secured a location for that. We'll have more information about that, where we can store those for the district, but also WP will be handling monetary donations for us. They've done that in the past, and so we'll be sharing more about that. So there's a lot of things we're still have details, but we'll be sending those all out. And I did not want to get ahead of the board because there's things we need to decide and want to make sure we're okay with that. But we have been, everyone in this district has been working on this issue around the clock to make sure we can get back to some semblance of normal. So there's a lot of things that we couldn't have probably thought of, and someone's thought of, and we put it down and we've been addressing it. So I promise you that's going to get answered, but we didn't want to put anything out there till we know kind of where we're headed, which is where I'm at now on the handout. Based on Mr. Bass and Builder Services and the vendors who have been amazing, we've called in the folks that have worked with us. They've come out, dropped everything to help us because they're busy with other projects, but they've dropped everything to come and do ours first. I mean, this happened a week ago, and we've had folks come in from everywhere and look at systems, bring people, and so that is a blessing. So because of that, Mr. Bass's estimate is that as of Friday evening, the building can be returned to us. The restoration piece, as he was saying, we can treat it like it's ours, and everything's back to normal except for those two wings. Now, there'll still be some stuff on that that's fenced off and that's safe, but the building is safe and functional. All I wanted was, is it safe? That was the first, I think, last Friday, I told him I'd hug him, but there was people around when we were talking about, so how long? What does this look like? Because here's what I need to know, because I want to have school. And so that's what we've been working towards. But the building will be clean, the floors, Ms. Thomas, will be done, and we can start the next phase. Ms. Thomas said, I just did my floors. I said, will you shut up about the floors? But we were teasing her about that. But so based on the input from Ms. Thomas and her staff and where we are and what we believe is the best thing to do, we do not want to do remote instruction. I don't think that's what families want. Families have been wonderful, students have been wonderful, staff's been wonderful. We don't think that's the right answer. If we had to, we could. At some point, it might have looked like that, but I don't think that's the best thing based on what people have indicated. It's not the best thing to do for students right now, and that's not what we're leaning towards. Also, we do not think it's best to try and look at relocation because there's really not a good answer for that. It would be extremely disruptive up and down the grade levels for families, for schools, and for the entire process. So I will tell you, since I stood in the hallway at 3:30 in the morning and looked at a classroom, that my goal has been for us to open school in that building on the first day of school, 26th. And that is our recommendation. I believe that's doable. I believe that's in the best interest of what students and teachers and families have indicated. I think it's best for that school culture and where they are right now after this storm and this crisis. And I believe that our staff and students can make that happen. Ms. Thomas has been working on that since day one. And, you know, we have food service, we have restrooms, those are functioning. Well, office area is fine. We've covered the gym floor and furniture is in there to be allocated however. We have the auditorium with no carpet, which is even better. Media center, we have some other ancillary rooms. We have a functioning 8th grade room. It's doable. Is it gonna be normal school? No, but it could be much worse because other solutions would probably be worse for families and students and would mean that we'd had a lot more damage and we'd be in worse shape. And this is temporary. This is temporary to get to another phase, which would be we're rolling as hard as we can to find mobile units and get those in place. We think the solution is to place what they call complex kind of mobile units on the ends of the gym side and the 8th grade wing that would be fully enclosed, large mobile units for our students, because they're gonna have walkways, power, all that kind of setup. But the repair phase is gonna take some time for those wings. It was severe. So we don't need to look at this as putting a couple mobile units out there, and we can't just do that anyway. The issue is they don't just keep those on site. So we've been working with 2 or 3 vendors to try and find what would serve our needs as quickly as possible. And when we get that information, we'll be able to share that with you. And that's something we'll have to come back through to you. So all of our efforts have been towards making this work. And Ms. Thomas and her staff have talked. That's what they would like to do. And so our recommendation is the building is safe. It's ready to be used. We will allow us driveways, buses, everything. It gives us a semblance of normal, and it's the best solution we have at the moment. And it will take some patience and flexibility, there's no doubt. But that's our recommendation going forward with where we are right now.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The wash clinic that we used, is that available to us to use at Springfield?
It is, it's set up for a different purpose, so it would have to be reconfigured on the inside. So I don't know how, that'll probably be a very small class space. These would be large units that would have, we're looking at around 10 classrooms with a hallway inside of a mobile unit. So there's two stairs ramps, so it's all contained in one. Because the site itself, we don't have enough room to keep putting things all around. And there's costs associated with mobile. You're gonna have to set them up and pull power. And the building inspector has already helped us determine how far away, where a good site would be. Mr. Bass and his staff have looked and said this would be a good setup. It's safe, it's secure, and will also allow traffic to continue to flow and not interrupt school and school functioning. And again, we're going to plan for the fact this is going to take a while to fix those wings. So Dr. Williams has been in contact, and Mr. Bass and others have helped us identify vendors, and others have reached out to me that have been in similar situations and given us vendors to contact, and we're getting information about that now for those units.
I have one recommendation.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you have such a competent staff, but it would be nice if Dr. Wilson, Mrs. May, could take over it for at least an hour and give you and Dr. Williams a chance to go home and go to sleep.
We've all, everybody's been looking out for everybody. And I think the thing that's really helped is that the board has been very supportive, and the district's been very supportive, and the community's been very supportive. And our teachers have been very patient, because I know they want to get in the classrooms. I know they do. Lord knows I do. But I asked Ms. Thomas to please tell them just hold tight, and I promise you, we'll take care of it. And Mr. Bass and I were talking, and because of that, that's allowed us to move faster, because we didn't have people come in and out. And again, this is an active work site. I've seen tools and things in there. There's temporary power, and I'm like, really, you don't need to be tripping around in here. And when you see some of the damage, when I show you some of the pictures, that's not a place you need people poking around in trying to find anything. And these folks know how to pack up personal belongings that are still there and take care of what people are really asking about. So, yes, I think that.
That was meant to be a joke.
Yeah, I know. But I'm telling you, we've all been, everyone, Greg and Daryl have been working around the clock. But everybody else around the district has picked up the slack as well, too. So I think we've been very fortunate.
So Dr. Mills,
Yes, ma'am.
just a little clarity, if someone would like to make a donation to help the teachers out with supplies,
Yes, ma'am.
would they make it to Amber Lynch or,
Yeah.
okay?
Right now, there is like an account set up through the PTO at Springfield, so you can donate through Venmo, and or mail a check to the PTO at the school address. All that's like online on social media, and then we'll have other ways, like WEP is working on another route as well, and then we'll have more information about in-kind coming. So.
Because people ask.
Yes.
What about volunteering? Because when the teachers go back, they just might need some help, and I would be willing, I don't know whether as a board member I could do that, but to give some of those teachers that are rearranging a chance to do that, and maybe volunteer with the kids or something. So if you keep that in mind.
Yes, ma'am.
Dr.
Well,
Mills.
with volunteer issue, even though this is an emergency situation, there is still a volunteer protocol and policy that is in place that volunteers would have to adhere to, so that they would still have to make contact with HR in order to do that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm thinking and hoping, since we have to go through this as a community in the school system and all, that there'll be some benefits as far as gaining appreciation and camaraderie and pulling together, and some of the pluses that come from that, and especially the people closer to the school itself, including students, parents, and just everyone. And I'd be surprised if that didn't occur.
I think the entire community has been extremely supportive. And I'm telling you, from the time I pulled up in front of the building, there were parents on the response team. I mean, they're talking to me about their we want to have school, and we're so sorry this happened. I mean, so it was connected from the moment it happened. So there's a lot of support. Madam Chair. Boyette.
Okay. Ms. Boyette?
Adversity always reveals true character, and I think that's what we're
Amazing.
seeing now. In fact, I would challenge and hope that perhaps this year that the students at Springfield would do even as well or better than they have performed next year, just to show, hey, you can throw it at us, but you can't defeat us.
And our principals have reached out and been very supportive and offered, which is what we know to be true every day. But I think that, it's going to be change. It's going to be weird at times. And there's going to be flexibility is going to be needed, and it's going to be a time to get to restoration and get that work done, repairs done. But I do think that having everyone on one campus and having everyone working together and getting to the next step, this is a process, but it could have been a much more difficult process, and we were unlucky and lucky. Unlucky and lucky.
And just to add to what Ms. Boyette said, I just thought about that, was the saying about you can't keep a good man down, can't keep a good system down.
Yeah.
So we'll say that, because we're going to make our way, and we're going to pull together even more so. That's good.
Oh, we're giving accolades. The little guy or the young man that did the interview on Channel 11, he was really good. His dad was one of the firemen.
Mm-hmm. He was, I think think he was the one that went through the building to start with. He was there when I got there. They were already trying to help.
Well, I'm grateful that with the mitigation of factors for that central core in that 8th grade hall, that we can see our way clear to be able to make use of the building with the discussions that have gone on and the intent to keep that community together. I think that that's critical, so that there is not a sense of, a further sense of loss from the students, from the parents, from the community as a whole. And I think that that will work for the benefit of everybody, to be able to still have them within that same campus, and the sense of community will continue and grow. Are there any other comments, or kudos, or accolades, or whatever it is you want to say at this point while we're at this update? Mr. Mercer?
I did have a question. The expense of mobile units, is that part of the insurance or not?
That's unclear at this point. We're trying to get that answered, but I know that that's the plan, is to try to get mobile units in.
And the expense of making them usable, getting the power and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of variables, but I don't want to represent
know
that.
yet.
I know at this point, I don't.
I'm sure that those facts will come out as issues are resolved and questions are answered, so. Any other comments or questions at this point?
I'd like to just make one.
Yes, Mr. Boykin?
I'd like to commend Central Office, Ms. Thomas, for putting our students back into school safely. I know there's been a lot of question about virtual, and it's really good to hear that we're going to do everything we can to be back in a safe manner. So thank y'all.
That being said, Mrs. Barnes?
Madam Chair, I move that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3.
Second.
It's been moved by Mrs. Barnes, seconded by Mrs. Boyette, that the Wilson County Board of Education go into closed session to consult with the Board of Education attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143-318.11A3. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Let the record reflect that the motion carries unanimously. We are now adjourned to closed session.